morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You're watching World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar.
And I'm Hem Kaur Saraya. And on the show today, the White House has said that Donald Trump will be leaving the G7 summit early due to the Israel-Iran war. And this comes after he warned residents of Tehran to flee. Furthermore, he's also leaving the summit without signing a draft statement from Group of 7 leaders calling for de-escalation of the conflict in West Asia.
And in related stories, of course, Pentagon has announced it is sending additional capabilities to West Asia amid a ramp-up of the Iran-Israel conflict. The movement of one of the world's largest warships comes a day for the escalation, a day after the 4-day escalation of the war between Israel and Iran, with no end in sight despite international calls for de-escalation. We'll bring you more on that with a special guest to discuss more. First, the headlines.
Air raid sirens heard across Tel Aviv in early hours of Tuesday morning as Israel's army says it has detected new missiles launched from Iran. The two countries continue to exchange fire now for a 5th day.
At the G7 summit, French President Emmanuel Macron says U.S. President Trump had made an offer for a ceasefire and dialogue between Israel and Iran.
And Donald Trump to leave the G7 summit a day early due to the Israel-Iran war. After he warned the residents of Tehran to flee, Trump will leave after dinner with the heads of the state.
White House says U.S. forces in West Asia remain in a defensive posture after the Pentagon announced it is sending additional capabilities to the region.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says Israel strikes against his country deal a blow to diplomacy. Tehran's chief nuclear negotiator made the statement in a call with his French, British and German counterparts.
Bazan Group says all its facilities at Israel's Haifa oil refinery have been shut down as power plant was significantly damaged after a strike by Iran. Now 3 of its employees killed in the attack.
Oil prices jumped over 2% on Tuesday as Israel-Iran tensions escalate. Explosions in Tehran and missile alerts in Tel Aviv raise fears of supply disruption from major producer Iran.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Canada to attend the G7 summit.
Air raid sirens blare across Kyiv for a mass drone attack from Russia. City's mayor says U.S. citizen killed and 16 others injured.
Authorities reveal a man accused of shooting 2 Minnesota lawmakers also visited houses of 2 other legislators and on the same night, intending to assassinate them as well.
'An
Begin with a big development coming in the Iran-Israel war. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he will consider traveling to West Asia to help broker a nuclear deal with Iran.
Now, speaking at the G7 summit in Canada, Trump further said that he was talking on the phone, but it's always better to talk in person. Listen into what the U.S. president had to say when a reporter asked him if he would travel to West Asia for a nuclear deal with Iran.
Mr. President, would you consider traveling to the Mideast as part of any talks if it would help broker a deal with Iran?
Yeah, but I think we're doing pretty well. We're talking.
You don't think you'll
We
need
have a
to?
thing called a telephone, so we're talking. It's always better to talk in person.
And this comes after the White House has said that U.S. President will be leaving the G7 summit early due to the Israel-Iran war. Now, White House Press Secretary Karen Leavitt wrote on social media X that Trump will be leaving after dinner with heads of state due to the war situation.
For more on this, we're now being joined live by Anthony Lowenstein. He is an independent journalist and the author of The Palestine Laboratory. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Thank you.
Now, just to begin with, of course, I want to begin by asking you what your assessment of the situation in West Asia is, and also some of the comments that we're hearing from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What he says is that an assassination of Khamenei would end the war in West Asia. How do you assess these?
I mean, we're in an incredibly dark, worrying time where we have Israel essentially calling for the assassination of a sovereign nation. None of this has to do with how one feels about the Iranian regime, which has been repressive for decades. I've spent time in the country reporting many years ago, but this was an unprovoked attack a few days ago. It was based on the premise, a false premise, that Israel said that there was an imminent chance of Iran having and developing and building and using a nuclear weapon. A few months ago, the US itself declared that there was no evidence that Iran was developing a nuclear weapon. Israel has provided zero evidence that that is different, that that is changed. So we're in a situation now where the only person who can probably end this is Trump. And it's pretty clear in the last days, based on the sources I've spoken to and other reporting, that the US was in some way involved in the Israeli strike. I'm not talking about militarily, but certainly assisted in the defense of Israel when Iran fired missiles back. And it seems pretty clear now that there was a degree of subterfuge that was pushed by Israel and therefore the US. So the idea that Trump is somehow a peacemaker is absurd. On the other hand, the only person who can probably stop this madness is Trump. And these messages that are warning 10 million citizens of Tehran to flee is an absurdity. I mean, where are they supposed to go? The roads are blocked leaving Tehran, and other places in Iran are being attacked by Israel. So we're in a really, really dark place at the moment.
Absolutely. I was actually going to come to that. Now, he just has told Iranians to evacuate. U.S. is sending additional support to Iran. Pentagon has said that they're going to align with its warships in West Asia. And Trump still believes that he'll be able to get Iran come to the table for a deal, where Iran has clearly said that there's no choice for diplomacy right now. How do you assess U.S.'s move here now?
I mean, the US is, as usual, whether it's Trump or Biden or previous presidents, are playing a duplicitous game where if there is a serious desire to end this war, you put pressure on the main belligerent, Israel, to stop firing missiles at Iran. And the US, from what we can tell, is not doing this. I mean, when Trump is asked about this in the last days, he gives contradictory answers. On the one hand, yes, I think there could be a deal on the table. What is the deal? I mean, there's been negotiations between the US and Iran for the last months. All indications were they were moving in a good direction. There were differences between the parties, to be sure. And the ultimate question seems to be that Israel is now saying, and has been saying for months or frankly years, that Iran is not allowed to have any kind of nuclear development. Legally, under international law, Iran has the right to do that, not to build a nuclear weapon, which, by the way, no one talks about the fact that Israel has undeclared nuclear weapons, at least 200, which are not being examined, which are not being investigated, which are not being inspected by any investigator. So the idea that a state Israel, which does not have any kind of transparency around its own nuclear weapons, is proclaiming about non-existent nuclear weapons in Iran is an absurdity. And I think too much of the international community, Europe, the US, my country, Australia, is ignoring this pretty clear fact.
Mr. Lowenstein, you raised some pertinent issues there. Of course, we've been discussing this as well. And in fact, some of the experts that we've been speaking to also have said that you cannot possibly bomb Iran's nuclear program out of existence. And if we were to just talk about the preemptive strikes which were carried out by Israel, do you see this perhaps as a breakdown of the preemptive defense model and also the breakdown of the red lines defense model in West Asia right now?
Absolutely. I mean, is it a complete collapse in any kind of red lines? I mean, every serious international law expert in the last days has said that this Israeli attack was illegal from day one. I mean, let's be clear. Israel has been wanting, when I say Israel, Netanyahu and many people around him, for literally 30 or 40 years to attack Iran. And if you look at these headlines since pretty much the 1980s or 90s, they are always saying the same thing. Iran is on the verge of a nuclear weapon. There's been zero evidence of that ever happening. And we all remember, those of us with a long memory, 2002, 2003, around the Iraq War, where Israel, the US, many Western allies alleged that Iraq, Saddam Hussein, had nuclear weapons. No nuclear weapons were found. Zero. It was a war based on a lie, and around 1 million Iraqis were killed in the process. We are at the similar point here, 20 plus years after. None of this is to deny Iran's repression, authoritarianism. None of that is to deny that. I have Iranian friends who loathe this regime with a passion because they themselves are being negatively impacted either outside Iran or within. However, virtually everyone I speak to is saying none of that means that we support strikes on Iran, because if the Iranian regime collapses tomorrow, next week, there is no plan. What happens to the 90 million Iranians who are facing a deeply uncertain future? There are many pro-US and pro-Israel Iranian forces claiming that they will represent Iran or they will run Iran. They have no legitimacy within Iran itself. So whenever people see this in the media, that pro-war Iranians, either in Iran or outside, are talking about supporting Israeli strikes, remember, none of these groups have any legitimacy or support within Iran itself. So the day after, like we're seeing in Gaza, where there is still no day after, where this is ongoing massacres and genocide has been continuing for nearly a year, there is no plan. So to believe the US or Israel or European states that somehow these strikes on Iran are legitimate are wholly inappropriate and wrong.
Right, and that being said, Israel has so far been able to defend, but it has also got some casualties on their side. Can it actually prolong and go forward with it, even with the support? That is, of course, another question. And how are Israelis taking this? Because, I mean, even if the casualties, if they say that they have bomb shelters, 2 people were killed in bomb shelters, can Israel actually risk prolonging this war?
That's a very good question. I mean, at the moment, there seems to be a so-called rallying around the flag by the majority of Israeli Jews. Obviously, I'm putting aside Palestinians, both in the West Bank and Gaza and in Israel itself, because as many of your viewers might be aware, in many of the Arab towns within Israel, there are no bomb shelters. They don't exist because of Israel's discriminatory Jewish supremacy policy. So a number of Arabs have been killed in the last days because they have nowhere to run to. They have nowhere to seek shelter. Look, within Israel itself, there is opposition. There are a number of people I know who are deeply opposed to what Israel is doing, this belief somehow that you can bomb your way to freedom. But at the moment, it appears to be, as much as one can assess, and I've spent a lot of time in Israel over the years, including a number of months ago, that there is a general support for what Netanyahu government is doing, despite the fact that that government itself is increasingly unpopular. I think a lot of Israelis, what they're reading in the Israeli media is frankly a lot of propaganda, that somehow Israel is fighting a war for its existence, it's an existential crisis. None of this is true. And unless you are reading more critical analysis or news, you are, as an Israeli Jew, believing somehow that these attacks are going to make you safer. And it's worth saying this briefly. I speak to you as a Jewish person. I'm Australian and German, but also a Jew. And the idea somehow that Israeli actions are making Jews globally, but certainly within Israel, safer, is a delusion. That military power does not in the end bring you safety alone. And that's what Israel and Israelis are going to be finding out in the coming years and decades ahead.
Mr. Lowenstein, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA with your assessment on this. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks so much for having me.
And while Democrats are seeking to limit U.S. President Donald Trump's powers amid the ongoing Israel-Iran war.
Virginia Senator Tim Kaine has introduced a bill to restrict President Donald Trump's ability to launch military strikes against Iran.
Now, Kaine said Americans don't want another forever war. The bill cites the War Powers Resolution of 1973. Now, this law, passed during the Vietnam War, limits a president's authority to engage in hostilities without Congress. Trump would still be allowed to order military action in self-defense if an attack is imminent. However, the bill would block him from launching preemptive or offensive strikes without congressional consent.
To become law, the bill must pass both the Senate and the House of Representatives. It would then require Trump's signature, which he is expected to withhold. Congress can override a presidential veto with two-thirds majorities in both chambers. During his first term, Trump vetoed 2 war power resolutions. One of them, led by Kaine in 2020, also aimed to limit his authority to strike Iran.
And well, meanwhile, House Speaker Mike Johnson has reportedly postponed a planned trip to Israel amid the ongoing tensions. He had previously announced plans to address the Israeli parliament. In a statement, Johnson said he hopes to reschedule the address in the near future.
Just told you.
And for more on this, a correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Let's listen into this.
Senator Tim Kaine has introduced legislation to reinforce limits on President Donald Trump's ability to launch military action against the Islamic Republic of Iran as tensions in the Middle East escalate. While presidents are already required by the U.S. Constitution to get congressional approval before declaring war, Kaine says this measure is needed to prevent loopholes and unauthorized conflicts. He warns that Americans don't have an appetite for, quote, forever wars, and that any move towards hostilities should go through Congress. Now, the resolution comes as fears grow that the U.S. could get pulled deeper into the Iran-Israel conflict without clear public or legislative backing. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
And U.S. President Donald Trump has decided to depart the G7 summit early amid escalating tensions between Israel and Iran.
Now, after a day of speaking with G7 leaders about the need for a negotiated deal, Trump took to social media to back Israel and issue a warning to the Iranian capital. In the post on Truth Social, he said everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran.
Shortly afterwards, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that Trump would return to Washington late Monday due to the crisis, which is a day earlier than planned.
Now, Trump will miss a day of meeting that was also expected to include meetings with the leaders of Ukraine and Mexico. Trump has repeatedly declined to say if the U.S. would participate in Israeli military action, although he says it was not involved in initial strikes. Now, speaking to reporters, Trump voiced confidence that Iran would eventually sign a nuclear deal, as he warned without specifying that the United States will be doing something once he leaves a G7 summit. Now, Trump, who has praised Israel, strikes despite his stated preferences for diplomacy, said Iran would be foolish not to agree to negotiate settlement.
I've spoken to everybody.
What will you say?
Israel is doing very well, as you probably noticed. And I gave Iran 60 days, and they said no. And the 61st, you saw what happened. Day 61. So I'm in constant touch. And as I've been saying, I think a deal will be signed, or something will happen, but a deal will be signed. And I think Iran is foolish not to sign one. Yeah, but I think we're doing pretty well. We're talking.
You don't think
We have a thing called a telephone, so we're talking. But it's always better to talk in person.
Now, earlier, Trump refused to sign a draft joint statement prepared by G7 leaders calling for de-escalation of the conflict between the two West Asian countries.
Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron said if U.S. is able to achieve a ceasefire, France will support it. Speaking to reporters, Macron pleaded Israel and Iran to cease strikes against civilians.
Si les États-Unis d'Amérique peuvent obtenir un cessez-le-feu, c'est une très bonne chose.
If the United States can achieve a ceasefire, that is a very good thing, and France will support it, and we hope for it. Next, I say that it is absolutely essential that all strikes by both sides against energy, administrative and cultural infrastructure, and even more so against the civilian population, cease. Nothing justifies them. They are absolutely intolerable.
Rien. Et elles sont, elles, absolument intolérables.
Now, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the G7 leaders shared concerns about Iran's nuclear program, but also claimed that there is a consensus for de-escalation.
But we have to find a way to de-escalate the situation, notwithstanding the concerns that we all have about the nuclear program. There's no doubt about that. Notwithstanding, we all accept Israel's right to self-defense, of course, but there must be de-escalation, and that will be the central focus of much of the discussion today.
On the other hand, Japan, which has historic relations with Iran, has broken with its Western allies to condemn Israel's attack, calling it completely unacceptable and deeply regrettable. Now, the Pentagon is expanding its military presence in West Asia in response to the ongoing hostilities between Israel and Iran.
U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said he directed the deployment of additional capabilities to the region.
Now, posting non-social media platform X, Hegseth said protecting U.S. forces is our top priority, and these deployments are intended to enhance our defensive posture in the region.
It's unclear what the additional capabilities include. According to Reuters, the U.S. deployed a large number of military refueling aircraft and an aircraft carrier to West Asia. Britain has also deployed military assets, including fighter jets, to the region.
U.S. President Donald Trump and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer are currently attending the G7 summit. Trump has said he is in constant touch with Benjamin Netanyahu and he expects a deal with Iran. The group of 7 countries issued a draft statement calling for urgent de-escalation between Israel and Iran. However, reports have said that U.S. has not signed the statement.
Well, I hope there's going to be a deal. I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens. But sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
Meanwhile, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said that ongoing Israeli attacks are undermining diplomatic efforts. In a phone call with his counterparts from France, the UK, Germany and the European Union, Araghchi said that the strikes came at a particularly sensitive time amid ongoing nuclear negotiations with the United States.
Now, the call included French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot, UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy, Germany's Johann Wedeful, and Kaja Kallas, the EU's top foreign affairs official. France, United Kingdom, Germany and the EU, alongside China and Russia, were all signatories to the 2015 nuclear agreement with Iran. The U.S., however, unilaterally withdrew from the deal in 2018.
And Iran and Israel continue to exchange deadly fire for the 5th day now, with the Israeli military targeting Tehran, while Iran has launched another missile barrage on Israel.
Now, an Iranian ballistic missile struck the Bazan oil refinery complex in the northern city of Haifa. The Bazan group confirmed that 3 people were killed in the strike. The company reported significant damage to the facility's power plant, leading to a full shutdown of the refinery and its subsidiary operations.
Bazan is currently working with the Israel Electric Corporation to restore power to the site. The facility, known for its iconic cooling tower that rises above the densely populated Haifa Bay, has long been considered a high-risk target. For years, it has faced threats from Israel's adversaries, including the Iranian-backed group Hezbollah.
Iran launched multiple missiles towards Tel Aviv and Beersheva amid the escalating conflict. Air raid sirens sounded across several areas of Israel as the Israeli Air Force scrambled to intercept and neutralize the threats.
The Israeli military confirmed the detection of incoming Iranian missiles following Tehran's announcement of its 9th wave of attacks. The Iranian Revolutionary Guards has warned that they will strike Israel without interruption until dawn from Monday into Tuesday. And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Well, but don't go anywhere. We have more on the other side of World Day, beginning with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has arrived in Calgary to attend the 51st G7 summit in Kananaskis. The visit comes after a period of friction between New Delhi and Ottawa.
Israel is reportedly using mobile phone tracking to find and kill important Iranian military and nuclear figures. More details on the other side. Stay tuned.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Hello and welcome back. You're watching World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar, and my colleague, Him Kaur. More up on this side of the World DNA. Let's begin with the headlines.
I have to be back as soon as I can. We're going to have dinner with these wonderful leaders, and then I get on the plane. I have to be back early.
US President Donald Trump says he will leave the G7 summit a day early, says he has to be back for something very important.
White House says U.S. forces in West Asia remain in a defensive posture after the Pentagon announces it is sending additional capabilities to the region.
At the G7 summit, French President Emmanuel Macron says US President Trump had made an offer for a ceasefire and dialogue between Israel and Iran.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Canada to attend the G7 summit.
Air raid sirens heard across Tel Aviv in the early hours of Tuesday morning as Israel's army says it has detected new missiles launched from Iran. The two countries continue to exchange fire for a fifth day.
U.S. stock futures fell Monday night amid rising tensions between Israel and Iran. Trump called for evacuations in Tehran. Oil jumped 2% and all eyes now turn to the Fed's rate decision on Wednesday.
Air raid sirens blare across Kyiv before a mass drone attack from Russia. City's mayor says a U.S. citizen killed and 16 others injured.
Authorities reveal man accused of shooting two Minnesota lawmakers also visited houses of two other legislators the same night, intending to assassinate them as well.
FIFA Club World Cup comes under criticism again. Chelsea win their opener against LAFC in front of thousands of empty seats in Atlanta. Now, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Calgary to attend the 51st G7 summit.
Now, his visit to Canada, that is a first in over a decade, comes after a period of friction between New Delhi and Ottawa.
Prime Minister Modi, who was on a three-nation tour, arrived in Canada from Cyprus at the invitation of Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. The invitation signals the new government's intent to repair the bilateral ties.
The Kananaskis gathering on 16th and 17th of June is the Prime Minister's sixth consecutive participation in the G7 summit.
Now, a statement by India's Ministry of External Affairs said the Prime Minister will exchange views with leaders of G7 countries. Others invited outreach countries and heads of international organizations on crucial global issues, including energy, security, technology and innovation. Besides, Prime Minister Modi will hold several bilaterals on the sidelines of the summit. Coming over a month after India's Operation Sindoor, that targeted terror infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir in retaliation for the April 22nd Pahalgam terror attack that claimed 26 lives.
We've got a bit more work to do, so we'll go do it over.
Israel is reportedly using mobile phone tracking to find and kill important Iranian military and nuclear figures.
Now, the IRGC-affiliated Fars news agency has reported that mobile phone tracking technology is being used to carry out assassinations inside Iran.
Now, the report added that even turning off mobile phones at meeting locations or residences can still reveal individuals' whereabouts. It recommended using secure anti-tracking phones.
Israeli strikes have dealt a major blow to Iran's military chain of command by killing several top generals and nuclear scientists.
Now, the report follows a call by a Tehran lawmaker urging military and government officials to collect their own and their associates' mobile phones to prevent tracking. The report said that Israel previously killed Ismail Haniyeh the same way in Tehran.
The former Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh was killed in Tehran in July 2024. Iranian media, including the military-linked Fars news agency, have reported that mobile phone tracking has played a key role. Iran widely blames Israel for the assassination, calling it a violation of its sovereignty.
However, Israel has never taken responsibility for the killing or accepted that it has such a phone tracking technology. Israel had also used communication devices, mostly pagers, to target Hezbollah.
On the 17th and 18th September last year, thousands of handheld pagers and hundreds of walkie-talkies intended for use by Hezbollah exploded simultaneously in two separate events across Lebanon and Syria. More than 40 deaths were reported while thousands were injured.
Israel was widely held responsible for the attack. In November, Netanyahu admitted that Israel was responsible. When Netanyahu met President Trump this year, he gifted him a commemorative pager.
Now, in a region simmering with tensions, the question isn't if but when the next explosion will occur.
Now, the ongoing Israeli strikes on Iran have not only escalated the conflict but also brought the stark realities of the two nations' military capabilities into sharp focus.
The current situation is a brutal test of endurance. Who can absorb the most pain and continue to fight? Here's a report.
The Israeli skies are lit. Waves of missile and drone barrages have been lighting up the skies across Israel. There is death and destruction. Israeli air defenses have claimed to have shot down 80 to 90% of the incoming missiles. However, missiles like these, which sneaked through the multi-layered shield, caused much pain. The IDF says that the Israeli Air Force's success in destroying dozens of missile launchers and many missiles has reduced the pace of Iranian missiles piercing into Israel. The numbers paint a complex picture. Iran, with its vast territory and larger population, fields a substantial military, including a significant missile force. They possess a large number of ballistic missiles, including medium-range missiles capable of reaching Israel. However, much of their equipment is outdated, a mix of Soviet-era systems, pre-1979 American hardware, and more recent, though limited, Russian additions. Their air force, while numerically large, consists of aging aircraft, putting them at a disadvantage against Israel's modern fleet. Israel, in contrast, possesses a smaller but far more advanced military. Their air force is equipped with cutting-edge F-15, F-16 and F-35 stealth fighters, giving them air superiority in the region. Israel's defense industry is robust, capable of designing and producing advanced weaponry, and its forces are battle-hardened from decades of regional conflicts. The Israeli strikes have further weakened Iran. These precision attacks have degraded Iran's air defenses and targeted key nuclear and missile facilities.
Now we can say that we have achieved full air supremacy in the Tehran airspace. Iranian cells that are firing missiles at the state of Israel and toward our planes are being attacked by us in real time. The closing the circle capabilities that we have seen so far in Gaza, Lebanon, Judea and Samaria are happening now in Iran as well.
The strikes also eliminated several high-ranking Iranian military officials and nuclear scientists, disrupting their command structure and potentially delaying their nuclear program. While Iran possesses a large number of missiles, including some capable of hypersonic speeds, the effectiveness of Israel's strikes in neutralizing key launch sites and command centers cannot be understated. Iran warns that there is more to come.
Advance warning to Israelis for your future days. Leave the occupied territories, for they will certainly become uninhabitable for you in the future.
The long-term implications are less clear. Iran's ability to endure and absorb pain is significant. Their large missile arsenal poses a persistent threat, and their proxy forces in the region could be activated to harass Israel. However, continued Israeli strikes targeting key infrastructure and military assets are likely to weaken Iran's military capabilities over time. The conflict has become a war of attrition, a test of wills and resilience. The question remains, who can withstand the accumulating blows and emerge victorious from this brutal exchange?
Now, as tensions between Israel and Iran continue to escalate, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made a big statement.
Well, he has suggested that assassinating Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, would, quote-unquote, end the conflict between the two nations.
In an interview with ABC News, Netanyahu was asked about the reports that US President Donald Trump has rejected an Israeli plan to assassinate Iran's supreme leader. Netanyahu said, and I'm quoting him, "It's not going to escalate the conflict, it's going to end the conflict." He further went on to claim that Iran wants a forever war and is pushing the region towards nuclear conflict. Netanyahu also said Israel is trying to stop that by standing up to what he called the forces of evil.
And furthermore, in a press conference, Netanyahu also said that Israel is changing the face of West Asia through its military campaign by eliminating Iranian military leaders one after the other. He emphasized that Israel is well coordinated with the U.S. during this operation, which was aimed at Iran's nuclear and missile programs.
Netanyahu also noted that Iranians now perceive their government is much weaker than they thought, suggesting that this could lead to further consequences. He urged Iranians to rise up against their government, and this would perhaps pave the way for their freedom.
We will do what is necessary to achieve these goals, and we are well coordinated with the United States. We are changing, as I said on the first day of the war, we are changing the face of the Middle East, and this can bring radical changes in Iran itself. The Iranians understand that the regime is much weaker than they thought. They realize it, and that could lead to results.
Earlier, two senior U.S. officials had said that Israel had spotted a credible opportunity to eliminate Khamenei in the recent days, but Trump blocked the move.
According to reports, the Trump administration is keen to prevent Israel's deepening military campaign aimed at crippling Iran's nuclear ambitions from spiraling into a wider conflagration. Now,
Washington feels that a deliberate move to eliminate Khamenei would likely have triggered a regional collapse and destabilization. Let's shift our focus now. How Donald Trump and his businesses profited after becoming U.S. president has been a point of contention among lawmakers.
From luxury hotels to real estate and now crypto, the Trump family firms have seen massive gains. And now they're looking to dial in more profits. This time through a new venture, it's Trump Mobile.
Well, good morning, everyone. With Trump Mobile, we're going to be introducing an entire package of products.
You make a call to a doctor that's available to you 24/7, 365. That doctor can write.
Launched at Trump Tower, the new mobile service is priced at $47.45 a month. That's a symbolic nod to Trump being the 45th and the now 47th president. The plan includes bundled services like telemedicine, global texting, and roadside assistance. Alongside the service, a Trump-branded gold smartphone was unveiled at $499 with claims that it would be made in the United States, although no manufacturing details were disclosed.
Despite the high-profile launch, industry experts remain skeptical about the viability of a domestically built smartphone at that price. In the US, smartphone manufacturing is extremely limited, but only major players. Pearson builds devices domestically but sells them for nearly $2,000, 4 times the Trump Mobile price point. Analysts say unless Trump Mobile surpasses 1 million subscribers, its financial impact will likely remain minimal.
Now, this comes just days after Donald Trump reported a $57 million income from his crypto ventures. An earlier report showed that Trump family's crypto ventures have delivered a $2.9 billion boost to their net worth in just 6 months.
Now, a report by State Democracy Defenders estimates that crypto now accounts for nearly 40% of the president's wealth. Key drivers include the dollar Trump, dollar Millennium meme coins, and a major stake in World Liberty Financial, a crypto platform with ties to the Trump family. Ethics experts warn of growing conflicts of interest, especially as the president retains direct control of these ventures through family-linked entities, raising new concerns over the blending of business and public office. And India will take on Pakistan in the ICC Women's ODI World Cup on the 5th of October in Colombo.
It will be the first time the two nations face off in cricket since the ceasefire last month.
The fixtures for the World Cup were officially released by the ICC on Monday. The tournament is being hosted by India, but all of Pakistan's fixtures will be played in Colombo, which is the designated neutral venue for the matches. That was decided as part of the agreement with the ICC, which had to be finalized due to strained relations between India and Pakistan. The date for the India-Pakistan clash has been confirmed now.
It will be India's second fixture in the World Cup. The first match of the tournament will take place in Bengaluru on September 30th, which will see India face Sri Lanka. The event features 8 teams, with each playing the other in a round-robin format. The top 4 will make the semi-finals before the title clash on November in Bengaluru. However, if Pakistan make the final, then it will be held in Colombo. Now, a medical professional reportedly instrumental in supplying Matthew Perry with ketamine before his death is set to plead guilty to the drug-related charges.
The development marks a significant turn in the ongoing investigation surrounding the tragic passing of the beloved Friends actor.
While the doctor's identity has not been publicly released, the authorities' sources close to the investigation confirm that the individual has reached a plea agreement with the prosecutors. The charges are understood to relate to the illegal distribution of controlled substances, specifically ketamine. It remains unclear whether the plea will directly address circumstances of Perry's death, which was ruled by an accident due to the acute effects of the drug.
Now, the news comes after months of speculation and a detailed investigation by law enforcement into how Perry obtained the high levels of ketamine found in his system. The actor had been undergoing ketamine infusion therapy for depression and anxiety, but the levels detected post-mortem were far beyond therapeutic doses. This impending guilty plea suggests that authorities have uncovered sufficient evidence linking the doctor to the illicit supply of the powerful anesthetic. This case highlights concerns about how controlled substances are regulated and given out, especially in private healthcare. Further details of the plea agreement are expected to emerge in the coming weeks as the legal process unfolds. Now, the world premiere of Yanuni, a documentary about the fight for Amazon forest produced by Leonardo DiCaprio, closed the Tribeca Festival.
The film, directed by Richard Ladekani, shows the risk that indigenous activists take to protect their environment and their tribal lands from outside interests. More about it in our next report.
So Leo was a partner from the very beginning. We actually had this idea together, and he helped raise the financing of the film by finding, funders. He was there throughout the entire process and also through the final cut. So we worked together closely on this. We started in 2020, and it was very important to have their voices heard. I didn't want my voice to be heard. I wanted them to reach the globe, like the whole planet, because this is such an important topic. And Juma is this voice that I think people will connect to and that they will listen to.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World DNA.
Don't go anywhere. News and updates follow on the other side of this short break. You're watching WION World is One. Stay tuned.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at wion.com.
India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Hello and welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Jyotsna Kumar. Let's begin with the headlines.
I have to be back as soon as I can. I'm going to have dinner with these wonderful leaders, and then I get on the plane. I have to be back early.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he will leave the G7 summit a day early, says he has to be back for something very important. White House says U.S. forces in West Asia remain in defensive posture after the Pentagon announces it is sending additional capabilities to the region. Now, the G7 summit, French President Emmanuel Macron says U.S. President Trump had made an offer for a ceasefire and dialogue between Israel and Iran. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Canada to attend the G7 summit. Israel's army warns that it had detected new missiles launched from Iran, but swiftly dropped an alert and said people no longer needed to take cover. It had previously warned that missiles launched from Iran were heading towards northern Israel, saying it was working to intercept the threat. U.S. stock futures fell Monday night amid rising tensions between Israel and Iran. Trump called for evacuations in Tehran. Oil jumped 2%, and all eyes now turn to the Fed's rate decision on Wednesday. Air raid sirens blare across Kiev before a mass drone attack from Russia. City's mayor says a U.S. citizen killed and 16 others injured.